What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. Today is December 13th of 2022, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nolan. How goes it, Nolan?
Chris, I absolutely love life. Who could complain? Newsy day. We got a ton of stuff to talk about.
Yes. I think of one guy that can complain. So you want to get right into it? Give us a story?
Well, I think I can think of more than one person that can complain because it's SBF obviously at the perp walk today, but here's the bad news for our audience. I was really trying to get him because he looked like he just was getting so much attention and he could do this whole media thing and you could have him on a show and give him attention and then he'd come and talk about stuff and everyone would watch and we'd be like, oh, look at that guy. He's like stealing money and he's a porno guy and gross. I was going to get him at Bitcoin 2022, May 18th to 20th, and we were going to make a dunk tank and you could pay money and throw a ball and hit him with stuff. And I was sure he was going to join. He was into everything. Any offer was good. But it's not going to happen, folks. He's not going to make it to Bitcoin Miami, May 18th to 20th. It doesn't really matter. It was just a sideshow. It was just a spectacle. We just wanted to have a bit of fun because it looks like now he's actually criminally charged, and it's quite a list. Now, we made the prediction on this show that he hadn't bribed enough people, and that indeed he would end up. One take stock, of predictions when it comes to stuff. We didn't think he had bought a nibble off to avoid prosecution, and it looks like that's what's happening. So there's 8 counts, and it's both the CFTC and the SEC, so multiple hammers dropping. And we've got the conspiracy to wire fraud customers, 20 years, $250,000 fine. In the end, everything adds up to about 165 years in prison and $6 million fine. So we'll be well into the second era of a Bitcoin standard, and he'll likely be one of the only relics we have left to talk about what the fiat world was like, talk about the excesses. So I predict in the end he will be some kind of a museum character that you'll be able to visit. So I'm thinking Bitcoin like 2050, the event, will probably still be in Miami, and it will be a capital city by then. We'll be able to have some kind of a show where SBF talks about the crazy times and what the fiat world was like and look at the gross stuff I could do and no one cared. So look forward to that at Bitcoin 2050. No SBF at Bitcoin 2022. 165 years in prison he's being threatened with. So we'll see. I think a lot of the stuff, just through their sheer lunacy, my prediction is we're going to see some jail time. I think the wire fraud envelope itself is enough to indict the guy, or enough to convict the guy.
Yeah. And for those of you that we will see May 18th through the 20th, you can use code BMLive by going to b.tc/conference to get your tickets, to get a small discount off of your tickets. And they go up shortly in price. So do it before the new year to get your discount. Well, not all of it is bad news. So Ziya Sadr is an Iranian Bitcoiner educator who lives in Iran and was detained during the regime amid the Mahsa Amini protests, and has been released back with his family with sources close to him. He's very close to us at Bitcoin Magazine. What do I mean by that? About 5 years ago, there was a thing called the lightning torch, where people would send sats from themselves to another individual around the world or somewhere else in a different geographic location. And then you add a little bit more sats and then you kind of send it down the line. And it was the lightning torch. Many prominent Bitcoiners and companies were involved in this. We were involved. Ziya actually sent the sats from Iran to us. And then we passed it on to another individual. So very, very close to us. But yeah, we were very happy that he's back with his family. We're glad that he's back on our team and, he's back home safe. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to add there, Nolan?
Yeah, it surprised me because we see what's going on in Iran with the law enforcement there. There's been public hangings, for God's sakes, really terrible stuff. And we don't have much better news on our shores about the behavior of our law enforcement. We've seen with Twitter Files 5 coming down yesterday, FBI involved in lots of stuff, and now we have Elon Musk subtweeting John Brennan, one of the 51 confirmed liars, about how they manipulated and controlled workers who became, in a sense, victims, right? I continue to see the Twitter employees here believing they were doing something good, and of course, in the end, doing something very bad, as we're seeing through the Twitter files, but just watching how they were persuaded, how they were convinced beforehand by entities like law enforcement to behave in a certain way. And you see it now with Coinbase, right? So all this Twitter file stuff happening, and all of this, essentially infiltration and policing by another means, so deputizing entities in order to carry out government objectives, in this case, censorship of other ideas. Coinbase looking like the pressure is on them as well. Coinbase law enforcement requests, so requests from law enforcement jumped 66% the past year. And that means over 12,000 interactions now. So the same force of weight that the law enforcement system, the legal system, brought onto banks in their turn are quickly moving towards the crypto exchanges. And I would imagine that things at Coinbase look similar to the other exchanges, because they look awfully similar to what we saw, or what we're seeing anyway, at Twitter. And one can only imagine that, and should imagine that, the same circumstances can be found at the other large social media platforms and other banks. So the idea of choking off money now seems to be, through policy objections, now seems to be wide enough held. The net has been cast almost everywhere.
Yeah, not good. But I know Elon Musk tweeted yesterday that basically saying that if the Fed raises rates, as well as Bank of America said, they're going to see a recession get worse and things are going to break more so. Well, things that have already broken is the used car salesman, or the used car sales. So a car salesman has said that a couple with an 820 credit score, so we have a credit scoring system in the United States of, I think it goes 220 to 840 or something like that. I forget what the range is, but someone with an 820, one of the highest scores, was quoted at an 8% loan from Capital One and a 10% loan from Ally for this car loan. And he said, this is anecdotal, that he has never seen this happen before. So while Elon and Bank of America are saying the recession is impending, it seems that even on the streets, people buying used cars or new cars, the loans and things are getting more difficult there for the everyday person. I know Peter McCormick actually had a great documentary today that just released, talking about inflation pressures in the UK. And, obviously we've talked about the EU and the UK ad nauseum. Energy prices are soaring there. And things are just getting more and more difficult for the lower and middle class. Nolan, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, more and more difficult for the low and middle class, and for Bitcoin companies. Another Peter McCormick talking about the cost of living crisis in London and the cost of energy. Argo miner, a Bitcoin miner, based in London, talking about restructuring their bankruptcy to avoid bankruptcy, and basically meet their financial obligations. Not really sounding super confident that their plan here is going to work. So nevertheless, bankruptcy, not a failure. Bankruptcy is an option that is designed for a reason, in order to manage these situations. So definitely not the worst case scenario. The worst case, of course, would just be completely finished. So we're going to keep paying attention. But the story we're tracking here, of course, is that Bitcoiners, Bitcoin companies, have been dealing with and managing the risks around the recession a little bit earlier than the mainstream economy. So that's why we continue to look for our Bitcoin winter to be over by May 18th to 20th. It's going to be warm. We're going to get together, talk about running the world's energy systems better, running the world's health systems better, running the world's basic literacy, our frame of literacy, our ability to tackle situations as being financially literate people and energy literate people. That's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about May 18th to 20th. And hopefully Argo can make it. We're definitely going to have them on our list of speakers, because it's all about energy. And if anyone can light a torch under the energy illiterate UK who got themselves into this situation, it should be Argo. They have firsthand knowledge of how Clown World can fail them.
Yeah, I agree. While it is cold in North America, and we are in crypto winter, as they call it, and it will be warm in May in Miami. It is currently warm down in Australia, but it is cold at the same time. What do I mean by this? The Australian government is looking to China, so they are trying to enact a social credit scoring system to allow people to use their cryptocurrencies. What do I mean by this? So, in order to buy or sell on regulated exchanges, they want to link it to a social credit system. Where have we heard this before? China. Obviously, if you self-custody your Bitcoin, no one can stop you from transacting or sending it from one person to another. There's obviously risks when you KYC yourself. I prefer to get non-KYC sats, such as BISC, such as RoboSats, such as HODL HODL, just to name a few platforms. But Australia is also trying to push through regulation that would require people to KYC themselves, not just to buy Bitcoin or to use banking services, but to use social media in general. So things are not looking too promising in Australia right now. So while it is warm in the December months down in Australia, it is cold in the what is going on right there in terms of their government and the restrictive policies they're looking to implement. Anything you want to add,
Chris,
Nolan?
yeah, I'm wondering, do you think Australia is the stupidest of the English-speaking countries in the world, or other dumber ones? Canada, I mean, is a good answer. New Zealand,
U.S.
I
is
mean, the
heading in the wrong
governments.
direction. New Zealand's pretty close,
Well,
but they're like an
they're
offshoot
really
of
bad.
Australia anyway.
Yeah,
So, but aside
yeah,
from that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But they got that girl there. She's terrible.
Oh yes, I
Oh,
forget her
what's her
name. I know.
name? Oh, she's awful. I can't even listen. I gotta turn like if I see her like on Twitter, I gotta scroll away. If YouTube suggests a video, I have to stop it. I don't even want to know what her voice is like. I heard it once by accident, and it was so irritating that I had to just erase her from all. I had to use visibility filtering on her because it's unacceptable. I do the same with Justin Trudeau. And I guess Australia, but I don't know who's dumbest. You know, America has its problems, but America's so big and complicated. So you've got smart places in America, like Texas. You know, there's lots of smart people all over these places. It's not the people that we're talking about here, right? There's plenty of really great Canadians and great Australians and great. It's the government. So America has many governments. The federal government, I mean, you know, we just have to hope Fetterman can make it in 2024 and save us.
It's
Fetterman
like you said
24.
yesterday with Clinton. Like, if you have to say you're important, are you important anymore? And
Yeah,
that's maybe the
yeah.
federal government at large.
Which is
But
great. We're winning.
it's not all hot and cold. There is a ray of light. You want to talk about energy in Europe? So we've talked about how they're stupid, but this is maybe one of the brighter ideas that they're doing. Nolan, if you want to break down the story.
Yeah, so Satimoto, it's a charging station that all the folks in Europe can use to charge their vehicles and cars. And there's a lot of, we see a lot of the sidecars, I guess you call them in the United States, people who have four-wheelers, ATVs, here where I live in Vermont. But if you go down south, you start to see people get around town with golf carts and more electric type vehicles just for your neighborhood. And Europe has a lot of those as well. So these charging stations are for all these kinds of vehicles. So you have to just imagine a little more of that demand out there than what you might just see with just a bunch of Teslas running around in town. So these are there, and what they're going to do now is use sats for charging to pay for the charging in these. They have now linked up with Lightning Network, and hopefully it can help that thesis that we like to mention on this show that we're going to expand on at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami, May 18th to 20th, where we really get into energy incentives, what helps them grow healthy, how Bitcoin can help align those incentives around the centralization of finance for decentralized grid buildouts. So maybe this fits in there somewhere. Who knows? We're going to have a look. And another one of those companies that we're going to pay attention to, and especially what they're doing, and see if it has a nice role in how we can cover energy and how we can cover energy decisions being made all around the world.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to replace fossil fuel at any time, and definitely the energy source still needs to be sourced in order to charge do these charging stations. But I'm very cool integrating Bitcoin into this, and maybe it'll make them more. I don't want to say more energy conscious, but figure out ways to even improve their energy layout for how these charging stations are powered. Go ahead, Nolan.
Could be, yeah. One of the dreams I have, and you'll hear this kind of content on my morning show every day at 8 a.m. called The Breakup, which we put out on YouTube and Twitter, is this idea that one day we'll actually, you know how World War II ended with the Eisenhower highway network? I believe we're going to create some kind of a end of World War III civil infrastructure plan, and it will look something like a not side of the road situation, but real infrastructure for electric bikes and electric cars and trikes and golf carts and all that kind of stuff, where you can actually travel all of America using this infrastructure. I even imagine like a third of New York City being totally turned into that, not bike lanes, actually just for the stuff. And I think what we could do, and the reason why I think it's a great idea, not just a civil engineering project, is because we can actually prove the political stance voluntarism, which is where Bitcoin should lead us to as a political structure, a political system where we are not taxed by any means of force, but we choose ourselves to put money into projects that we obviously see are great. And I think this exact technology, these lightning payable terminals, could be something that could be put on a network like a bike path for electric bikes, carts, tricycles throughout America, where you can actually start gathering enough money to finance the expansion of the network. So that's what I'm talking about, using technology like this to actually expand a physical network, because Bitcoin allows this type of financing. So the voluntarism part, I'm putting on my own spin on it, but I imagine this type of technology could actually help you scale the network itself and grow the network out, which is what I would love to see, which is where the real story here. It's not just that you can charge your vehicle with and pay with Lightning, great, wow, awesome. It's not that. It's that we can actually incentivize and expand on the network because of this new payment device. That's the type of stuff we're going to cover at Bitcoin Miami, May 18th to 20th. That's it right there. Bitcoin, energy, literacy. Really important stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we also talk about wartime Bitcoin. So it's crypto winter, and we might be in wartime Bitcoin. So, first they laugh at you or they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you. I think we're kind of in that stage on many different fronts. So Neil Jacobs, he's a good follow on Twitter, recently tweeted out he had a conversation with someone at a crypto media company, not the block, he clarified. I know we're making fun of the block for downplaying Bitcoin, bashing on Binance, all those different things. But crypto media companies have actively rejected Bitcoin stories that their writers want to cover, and two, have disdained for Bitcoin maximalists. He says, I'll say it again, we are at war. So Nolan, I know you have expertise, or you have experience working at other crypto companies. So you were at CoinDesk and such, and other companies alike. Do you think that there is a fight against crypto versus Bitcoin and all of that?
So in a large media outlet like CoinDesk, you definitely have individuals who would think that way, but it's such a large entity that they would want all points of view. So you could imagine there would be people who would be proponents of maximalism or proponents of Bitcoin focused or Bitcoin centric way at looking at the market. I'd say in any one of these instances, you are definitely getting an editorial take overall. The smaller ones, I would imagine, would definitely embrace this attitude because it gives them some form of distinction and differentiation from the market, and they could, easily be tricked into thinking that they are on top of the story because it's different than a mainstream view of it. So yeah, I can imagine, I can see this out there, but it's the same forces that are at play pulling normal media apart as it is, right? Bitcoin is a worldview. It's not just a thing about finance and making some money. So no matter what the limited scope of those other media outlets, because once you just take it down that road, you're going to limit yourself to actually talking about politics and diet and healthcare and incentives and all those types of things, and you're leading yourself into the consumer technology area where, yeah, maybe some of this stuff will stick, but really it's the same as subcategory of trading cards or a subcategory of a niche of a trading type, usually generally super sophisticated stuff, which might be interesting to a small audience. So definitely there's people who continue to think of this in terms of not only is it a subset of the hyper-specialized field of trading, it's in combination a subset of the hyper-specialized field of computer science. So if they think there is a market out there, if you mix the computer science people with the finance people, and then you get some readers and viewers, fine. I think Bitcoiners are certain that the point of this game is to shrink the size of the finance industry And so crypto media might still see this all through either the engineering, VC sponsored finance industry. But I'd say you're doing yourself a disservice, and it doesn't really matter. It's wartime Bitcoin, but only Bitcoiners can even see it at the scale of wartime, right? Because Bitcoin is a worldview, it does give you a scale that reaches into history and around the planet. And I mean, the other things, it's just faster, stronger than the thing built by the engineer next to you, and maybe performs better with less latency than the guy trying to screw you on a trade across town, right? That's about it. Subcategory. I continue to say crypto is kind of I don't say it's not a totally fake thing, but it's a subcategory of a subcategory. It's like, how do we raise a bit of money because we want to go to a capital market? Okay, that's a real thing, right? Is it money? No, right? Bitcoin invented money, which is everything. It's how we get information, how we process energy. Like, look, a crypto show could never do what we're going to do in Miami, May 18th to 20th, and talk about energy literacy. They took all the energy out of it because they were worried about the ESG and the stuff. And so they're just promoting energy illiteracy amongst the people that are reading this stuff. I mean, they literally are actively promoting energy illiteracy by even embracing these concepts in the first place. So, it's just a question of who you're trying to service. We're trying to service the greatest amount of people going through one of the most flipping reality upside down changes we'll ever go through in life. We're not really trying to talk about latency of trades and a quant strategy over Forex. We don't really give a shit. So let them cover that stuff. I mean, it is wartime, but again, the vocabulary of it's wartime is unique to Bitcoiners because it is a worldview, and I think maximalists have a lot to do with the contrasts and making the worldview stand out and be as vivid as it is. Even if I might disagree with them on points here and there, I think there's no doubt that having contrasts helps. And even if other media wants to make the contrast, do it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fighting, maybe not war, but definitely fighting, the SEC and Grayscale are going at it. Nolan, if you want to break down this story.
Yeah, well, what it basically is this is the same old ETF thing forever. And the SEC continues to deny ETF applications because they don't believe the spot market has enough controls or visibility or can be manipulated or any of that stuff. So Grayscale sued the SEC because this excuse has been used, or this reason for denying ETF applications has been going on for years. So Grayscale sued and said, you're treating us differently. This is a form of specific targeted treatment to us in our specific application. It should just be taken care of, right? Or it should be, we should have made our case by now. So the SEC finally coming up with their response, and their response being that the SEC doesn't treat them differently, and that the SEC treats Grayscale in a way that is predictable and could have been foretold by the consistency of their treatment of ETF applications, and that nothing has changed. So pretty decent defense. Just looking at it right on top, I'm trained as a lawyer, not a lawyer, but have that background, and it makes sense. Things look so simple and so clear cut until you hear to the defense, and then suddenly they don't. And so this looks like a reasonable defense. We'll see if it holds up, but we look forward to the truth coming out. Litigation, it's good, right? It's good. The same thing with, even with this, I guess, Assange case, something we're definitely going to cover at Bitcoin 2023. I used to be a big pardon him, but actually these days I'm more interested in him coming to America, and let's have a public trial, right? Let's see it all out in the air. I would love that. At this point, the pardon seems like we're missing out on the big benefit. So hopefully we have a public trial here, and we get a little more insight into what I think is unconstitutional adjudicative powers on the part of the SEC anyway. Right, there's a big argument out there that they're not even supposed to have their ability to have a court. Right, I'm in that camp. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, Last story of the day, kind of a crazy one. So we've kind of seen, crypto contagion over these last couple months. Obviously, that affects Bitcoin's price. We're in Bitcoin and not crypto, but Binance is seeing crazy outflows right now. So in the last 24 hours, Binance has seen $902 million, just short of $1 billion of outflows from their exchange. So I'm not saying this is causation and correlation, but CZ tweeted on USDC, we have seen an increase in withdrawals, and basically it's locked up. They were blocking withdrawals of USDC payments. They basically say it requires a bank that has to go through New York, and the banks are not open when he was tweeting this last night. We expect the situation to be restored when the banks open tomorrow. Well, FTX tweeted on November 7th, a day before declaring bankruptcy, hey, we're seeing a lot of issues with stablecoin processing. It's the weekend. The banks are closed. We will resolve this, once they open back up Saturday morning or, on Monday or whatever. And basically they declared bankruptcy. I do not want to be a fuzzster and say Binance is going bankrupt. But the point I am trying to prove is not your keys, not your coins. You do not want to be in a situation like FTX or Celsius or Voyager or BlockFi. Do not become the next person that, I left my money on Binance after all these things happen. So you have been warned. Do not leave your money on exchanges. Don't leave any money on exchanges. Withdraw it into self-custody. A cold wallet, it would be preferred. But if you have to, a hot wallet will work just fine until you get a better storage solution. So not your keys, not your coins. Nolan, anything you want to add?
Chris, you're spreading that FUD. I can see the headlines now. Bitcoin Magazine with the scoop. Binance going down. No, and look, one of the things we want to really focus on at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami, May 18th to 20th, is to bring folks like Binance there in order to let them offer our audience their own solutions. We're going to limit their capacities in the sense that bring us your solutions to self-custody, bring us your advice that you give your top-tier clients to protect themselves. Bring that kind of stuff and share it with our audience, because that's really the only space we have for these entities now, right? We have so much content around energy, around diet, around health, around all the things that go into having a healthy worldview and making Bitcoin really a part of how you read and measure the world around you. So, the exchanges have a sort of a less of a role as we move forward in this industry, and we still value them as sponsors and they help us put on events, but we're definitely going to try and limit what they're talking about to these types of things where they're talking about how they can help you with self-custody. So hopefully they're around, right? Hopefully whatever this FUD you're spreading, man, hopefully they're there, and hopefully they have some innovation and can help us all self-custody a little better.
Definitely. So that's all we got for today. We want to see you in Miami, May 18th through the 20th. Make sure to also get your Orange Party issue. You can use the code BMLive for both your ticket and the Orange Party issue to get a 10% discount. It's been a pleasure. Nolan, anything else you want to bring up?
That's it. We're rolling again tomorrow at 8 a.m. every day on the breakup, and lots of psychological manipulation talk going on these days. So come.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Talk to you later. Peace.